So, have you ever spent, I don't know, 10 frustrating minutes looking for your car keys? And then the moment you actually mutter aloud, okay, first, where did I have my coffee?
Yeah. Yeah.
You find them.
Right? And you probably had that little flash of embarrassment, hoping nobody heard you.
Exactly.
Because we have this cultural stigma around talking to ourselves. We've sort of been taught that it's, odd,
Yeah.
or even a sign of instability.
Yeah, it's a total movie trope, isn't it? The eccentric genius or the villain pacing around talking to himself. We're basically trained to keep that monologue inside.
But here's the fascinating thing. Our sources for this, and we're pulling from major psychology journals like Frontiers in Psychology plus articles in Time magazine, they all confirm this isn't just normal, it's actually really beneficial.
And that's our mission for this deep dive.
Exactly. We are peeling back the layers on the science of self-talk. We want to unpack the hard evidence that shows verbalizing your thoughts, whether you do it silently or out loud, is a profound tool for improving performance, for learning, and for regulating your emotions.
So we're going to get into the why, the specific neurology behind it.
Yeah.
We'll lay out 7 research-backed benefits you can use today. And maybe most importantly, we're going to draw a really clear line between healthy self-talk and the kinds of symptoms that might need professional attention.
Right. The central idea in all the research is that verbalization is this powerful regulatory mechanism. It takes all the messy abstract thoughts swirling in your head and it turns them into structured linear input your brain can actually manage.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's just normalize the habit itself.
Absolutely. The first thing to know is this is not some fringe behavior.
We're talking about 2 things here, right? The silent inner voice.
The internal monologue, yeah, which
Yeah.
most of us have. And then also speaking out loud sometimes, like when you're building furniture or trying to solve a tough problem. Both are just fundamental cognitive functions.
They're developmental even.
They're developmental milestones. It actually starts in childhood. Kids naturally talk themselves through tasks. Piaget called it egocentric speech. As we get older, a lot of that speech just gets internalized, but it's still doing the same jobs, helping with memory, keeping our attention, and crucially, managing our emotions.
So if it starts naturally when we're kids, what's actually happening in the brain when we go from just thinking a thought to speaking it out loud? It seems like a small step, but the research says the effect is huge.
Oh, it's a major difference because you're suddenly using so many more of your brain's resources.
Okay.
When you think silently, you're using certain processing centers. But when you speak, you activate multiple systems all at once. You've got language processing, executive control, and even the motor areas that control your mouth and vocal cords.
Wait, hold on. Executive control areas. What are those exactly? What's their role here?
Think of them as the brain's CEO. They're responsible for the high-level stuff planning, making decisions, inhibiting impulses. So by linking the thought, the language, with the physical act of speaking, you're creating stronger, more durable neural connections. You're basically getting your entire communication system involved in the problem, not just your abstract thinking space.
That almost sounds like how memory works. You know, the more senses you involve, sight, sound, touch, the stronger the memory becomes.
That is an excellent analogy,
Yeah.
this multisensory reinforcement for a thought. And there's another crucial effect. It actually slows you down.
It slows down your thinking.
Yes. When you're just thinking, ideas can just race by, sometimes in chaotic loops.
But isn't the argument that speaking is less efficient, it's slower? So how is that a good thing?
It is slower. And for complex tasks, that's exactly why it works. It forces a linear structure on your thoughts. You can't just skip steps or gloss over a problem when you have to say it out loud.
Yeah.
That slowing down process allows for deeper analysis, much better focus, and the sources really stress this. It significantly reduces anxiety.
Yeah.
Because you're naming the problem, not just letting it swirl around.
You're making the abstract concrete.
Precisely.
And I found it really interesting that the sources pointed out how much this varies from person to person. Not everyone even has that constant inner narrator.
That's a huge finding in psychology, yeah. Some studies suggest, 30 to 50% of people report having little to no inner monologue at all. Their thinking is more, I guess, conceptual or visual.
Wow.
But for the rest of us, that inner or outer voice is a primary engine for how we think.
Okay, so let's pivot from just normalizing this to actually using it. If self-talk is this powerful tool, what are the specific, actionable benefits? The research identified 7 of them.
And these aren't just, feel-good ideas. These are measurable gains in everything from learning to emotional control.
Let's start with number 1, guidance during complex activities.
This is the one we all know. You're trying to assemble furniture, follow a recipe.
Or code something.
Exactly, a task with multiple steps. By verbalizing, you're forcing your brain to follow a sequence. You're turning this big, overwhelming thing into a series of small, manageable steps.
Yeah.
It stops you from skipping ahead.
Makes sense. Number 2 is learning new material.
This one is huge for anyone learning a new skill. Verbalizing difficult information dramatically increases your engagement with it. One of the sources cited a really great study with paramedic students.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
When they had to verbalize their clinical reasoning, talk through the symptoms, the possible diagnoses, the treatment plan, their professional judgment just skyrocketed.
It's like you're making the implicit explicit. You're forcing yourself to connect the dots out loud.
Exactly right. It's much harder to fool yourself when you have to actually state your reasoning.
Okay, benefit number 3, processing disquieting or novel experiences.
This is when you're thrown into a totally new environment, a new job, a foreign country, anything unfamiliar. Self-talk basically acts as a stabilizer. By speaking your thoughts, you're helping yourself make sense of what's happening. It's a way to find your footing when the world feels ambiguous.
Number 4, improving performance. This is the one we hear about in sports psychology all the time.
Right, and here we can distinguish between instructional self-talk, like keep your eye on the ball,
And motivational self-talk.
and motivational self-talk, like you can do this. And the science shows both work, but the motivational kind really boosts effort and persistence. The sources mention basketball players performing way better when they verbally talk through their moves.
So it shifts your focus from the fear of failing to just doing the task.
That's it. You're focusing on execution.
Okay, number 5, processing past events. This feels like it gets into mental health, dealing with things like regret.
It does. When you're struggling with a failure or a mistake, verbalizing it helps you get perspective. It pulls the event out of that purely emotional loop and into your analytical brain. You can decatastrophize it by talking through what happened instead of just reliving how bad it felt.
Number 6 is monitoring internal dialogue. This seems critical for breaking negative cycles.
It is. Because if you just think a negative thought like, I'm so bad at this, it can just slide by unchallenged.
But saying it out loud.
But when you actually hear yourself say, I am terrible at this, it sounds much more absolute, even absurd. It's so much easier to spot and then correct than when it's just a silent thought.
And that brings us to number 7, which the research really highlights as the most transformative one, promoting self-distancing.
This is the game changer. It's a very simple but incredibly powerful linguistic shift.
You mean using you or your own name instead of I?
Exactly that.
Why is that one little word so revolutionary?
Because language creates psychological distance. When you say, I am so stressed right now, you're completely immersed in that feeling. You are the stress.
Oh, okay.
But if you switch to, okay, you're feeling stressed right now, and that's understandable, you've suddenly shifted your identity. You're no longer the subject. You're the objective advisor. You're the coach.
It's like you're switching from being the patient to being the doctor.
That analogy is perfect, and it's backed by the neuroscience. Research from Ethan Cross showed this technique significantly enhances our ability to regulate thoughts and reduces that self-criticism we feel after an event.
And it actually activates different parts of the brain.
Yes. It shifts activity away from the emotional reactivity centers and toward the regions associated with planning and problem solving.
So let's make this really practical. Say you're prepping for a big, stressful presentation at work. How would you use this?
Well, instead of the usual, I hope I don't mess up and need to remember my points.
Right, that internal panic.
The coaching voice says, your name, you've prepared for this. Focus on connecting with the people in the room, not on just memorizing. It takes the personal pressure off and puts the focus back on the task.
What about something more emotional, like a difficult negotiation?
Instead of I'm too nervous to ask for what I want, the self-talk becomes you are feeling undervalued. Remember the data you brought, stick to the plan, and speak from a place of strength. It acknowledges the emotion but grounds you in the rational plan.
And just for general anxiety.
The inner coach doesn't get sucked into the worst-case scenarios. It offers grounding. Things like, these are just thoughts, they aren't facts. Or, name, what are the 3 things you can actually control in this moment?
So the big lesson is the self-talk is happening anyway, but if you can just control the pronoun,
you can control the outcome. It moves you from just unconscious worry to intentional cognitive regulation.
Which brings us back to that fear we started with. We have to address this. We've established that almost all self-talk is healthy, but people need to know, where is the dividing line? When does this cross over into something clinical?
And that clarity is so important. The sources give us really clear boundaries here. Healthy self-talk, even when it's out loud, feels like it's your own thoughts.
It comes from you.
It comes from you, feels conversational, it lets you process things, it's generally controllable, and it relates to what's actually happening in your life.
Okay, so what are the absolute red flags? The signs that say this isn't just cognitive processing anymore?
The main red flags are all about control and where the voice seems to be coming from. The biggest one is hearing voices from an external source.
So not your own inner voice.
Exactly. If it feels like it's coming from outside your head, that's a major warning sign. Similarly, if those voices are delivering commands or instructions that feel unwanted or harmful, you need to seek help.
So the perceived origin of the voice is almost more important than what it's saying.
That's right. Other big warning signs are an inability to control when the talking starts or stops, or if the content is persistently and severely negative, like constant self-hatred or paranoid thoughts, to the point where it's actually impairing your daily life, affecting your work, your relationships.
And you mentioned this can be linked to specific conditions.
We should be clear here. Repetitive negative loops or rumination, that's often a hallmark of anxiety. That harsh, persistent self-criticism can be linked to depression. And of course, hearing external commanding voices can be a symptom of psychosis, which absolutely requires professional care.
So the bottom line is?
The bottom line is, if you're experiencing external voices, harmful commands, or your life is being significantly impaired, it is time to talk to a professional, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, even just your family doctor to start.
That is incredibly important clarity. Okay, so let's synthesize this whole deep dive. We started by really trying to challenge that stigma around talking to yourself.
Right.
And we learned that verbalizing your thoughts is a legitimate thinking tool. It's how our brain structures and focuses our thinking.
And the key takeaway, really, is to use it intentionally. It's not just about rambling. It's about using structured phrasing and especially leveraging the power of self-distancing, that simple switch from I to you or your name.
It's the fastest way to get out of emotional chaos and into problem-solving mode.
It really is. And it's amazing how much this research has modern relevance. It helps explain why things like voice assistants, Alexa or Siri, why they feel so natural to us.
Huh. How so?
Because they're tapping into the exact same brain mechanisms. We're speaking our thoughts aloud to an external source that provides structure and clarity for what we're trying to do. It's the same principle.
That's fascinating. Okay, before we go, we always want to leave you with one final provocative thought to take with you.
Since that inner voice is going to keep talking one way or another, consider this finding. Research suggests that people who are socially isolated or people who are only children, they tend to engage in more self-talk. So if self-talk serves these essential cognitive and social functions, if it's filling in gaps that external conversation might otherwise fill, ask yourself this. What specific roles does your own self-talk fill in your life right now? Are you just using it to cope? Or are you actively using it to coach yourself toward growth and better performance? And what else could you achieve if you started doing that intentionally every single day?